Welcome to what is today's date? The 13th, Thursday, March 13th, meeting of the Foxborough Planning Board. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxborough Cable Access, and there will be some people who will be attending via Zoom tonight as well. First order of business is just to review old and new business from the Planners Department.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I just want to make an acknowledgement that the agenda for the previous meeting did not include the planner's report as an item. So that was a miscommunication on our end, but I would like to clarify that according to open meeting law, we should have had that on there. So our mea culpa. Next up, on the planner's report, we have now received confirmation that we will not be getting the feedback from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities before the deadline that we needed to do any changes to either our ADUs or our MBTA communities. So both of those have been yanked from town meeting warrant. We won't have to worry about those. There will just be one item for cleanup, and that'll come before you shortly. Nothing new on most of it. We did discuss the floodplain bylaw update with AdCom briefly, and they had no concerns with it. Again, that's purely to maintain our compliance with FEMA to ensure that people who require flood insurance through their program can still keep it. No news about Schneider Electric's sale. We are going to open discussions shortly to residents regarding the future use of the corridor as part of our master planning process. So whenever we have those public engagement sessions in early June, we'll certainly focus on Schneider Electric, Neponset Avenue corridor. And that's really about it. I am in the process of writing an application MDI right now for the design of improvements to the shared parking area near the Common. I did have a conversation with them this week about that, and that went very well. I guess they've done that for a couple of other communities that are similar to ours, so it is going to be an eligible project at least, so that's good to hear. That's it.
Okay. Anything else on the opportunities business you want to talk about, Deb?
For the active subdivisions, we still have a lot of activity. There's a couple of subdivisions that are a little dormant right now, so we're going to be reaching out to them and getting requesting a timeline of work that is going to be taking place. Our construction season, according to what our subdivision regulations allow, will start on the 15th of March. So now is when people need to start, doing more work. So we'll see. But we do have Lori Dorsey, who's the public works engineer, has been visiting the sites pretty much daily. And we receive her reports on Friday. She's been great. It's been great having her.
Okay. Action items, we have minutes from January 23rd and February 27th. Any comments or corrections or anything like that?
I had already made a few.
Jeff gave me a couple of corrections on the 23rd and nothing on the 27th.
Yep. I'd make a motion that we approve the meetings for January 23rd as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Oh,
Roll call.
Gary, yes. Gary, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Jeff, yes.
Kevin, yes.
Ron, yes.
If I had known if we had to do the roll call, I would have done them both together. I'd make a motion that we accept the minutes from February 27th with no corrections.
I'll second that.
All those-
Gary, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Jeff, yes.
Kevin, yes.
Ron, yes.
Well, the next thing, item of business is for a continued public hearing, but we cannot start that till 7:10. Anything else anyone like to bring
Going
up?
down to
or-
the next meeting.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. Just a preview of the agenda for the
Yeah.
next meeting.
Sure, that'd be
Preview of
good.
the agenda of the next meeting. Tracy's not gonna be here because she's away.
And what's the date of that?
That is March 27th.
Okay.
So we have the zoning articles.
Two,
now?
yeah.
Two
Yeah, we have
articles.
the articles that were requested by the Board of Appeals, some clarifications, and the floodplain update. So we have the hearings for those.
Then we have the public hearing for the 6 lots on North Street near the farm. Then we have Jeff Cook's contractor yard on East Belcher Road.
Yeah.
That is a requirement that they come to a planning board for their settlement that was reached with the ZBA.
Is that a special permit?
There's an old site plan when it was some kind of a landscaping thing, so I think they're revising that site plan, and it's a special permit for
For the
the
contractor yard.
yard.
Yeah, so it's a special permit for the use.
And then we also have that Chestnut Street duplex type thing at Hamilton Square. They applied for that too.
That was presented informally to the board.
In January, yeah. So we
January.
have 4 public hearings.
A busy night.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to make everybody wait. We just have a few more minutes.
The heat's not helping, it's getting sleepy already.
Well, you know,
did turn it
you
back
wore your
down.
heavy hoodie, you know, it's,
I'm just kidding.
Diana, just for planning purposes, is there, what would be the next meeting after that in
That's-
early April?
2 meetings in April would be April 10th and April 24th.
I will be unavailable for the 10th.
10th. It's in my book.
Thank you.
The clock's actually right.
no, mine says 7:09. Let's bring back those old IBMs, they always work.
Seconds, 35 seconds.
There we go. It being on or about 7:10 PM, we have a continued public hearing, special permit, 73 Main Street for construction of an 8-unit multifamily dwelling by Briarwood Construction Corporation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and I'm here representing the applicant, Briarwood Construction. So this project has been ongoing, I was just checking my notes, and I think our first hearing is a year ago. So it was last March. So I think it would be worthwhile for me to spend a minute or two here, just recapping where we've been and where we are this evening. So our first hearing, well, I'm going to start from the beginning. This is an 8-unit multifamily dwelling located at 73 Main Street, and there is currently an existing multifamily building there. This will be replaced that one will be torn down, and this one will be bigger. This is a significantly larger building, but the number of units is, that's a 6-unit, this is an 8-unit. All those are 1 bedrooms, these are 3 bedrooms. So it's a much bigger building. When we came in here in March, this design that you see here is pretty much, from a plan view, the same design that we're going to show you, that we've showed you back in March. What happened subsequent to that was the town purchased the Mormon church across the street and decided to put sewer down the street. So one of the issues we have here is we had a relatively high groundwater and relatively poor soils. So we had a really big septic system that covered a large portion of the parking lot on the southern side as we're looking at this. And it also had us pick the buildings up. So once the sewer has become a reality, which it's it's actually out to bid, we redesigned this to eliminate the septic system. We'll be tying into the sewer. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the fee, but it's pretty substantial, $40,000 connection fee to the town. And we redid some of the grading here as well. So, but as far as a plan view, as far as what you're looking at today, it's the same size building, it's in the same location, the configuration is the same. What's changed a little bit is the grading. Then we came back and filed modified plans in October last year, and those went out to your peer reviewer, Weston and Sampson. We responded to them, had some discussions, and they came back with a clean bill of health, at least based on their comments. And then we put this on hold last year, at the end of the year, because it had gone to court. One of our neighbors had filed a court case against it, which really had nothing to do with this board. I think we actually talked about it at the October meeting, but we didn't want to move forward with it until we had a resolution to that discussion. So, subsequent to that, or during that period, we've met with, I personally met with Miss Sinclair, who lives to the left, or the upper left, as you look at this house. We went out on the site with her, and we brought Tree Tech with us, and we looked at some trees along that line there, and there are some significantly large trees. So, and it's funny, when we drove up that day, some of the big branches had fallen on her driveway. So that was her concern. And some of the trees are on Briarwood's property, some of them are on her property, some of them are split it. So what we agreed to that day was we would take down all the trees as part of the discussion. As part of our permit, we would have no issue with that making a condition that we would take down all the trees along that property line between us and Miss Sinclair, whether they're on our property or her property, or half and half. And that's what we agreed to. I was the first person telling you this, so I was there. Also, has been going on is there was a resolution or between the attorneys that I was told today or yesterday. They had come to a resolution, hasn't been finalized yet because some of the paperwork still has to be approved, but I asked our attorney to call Mrs. Wheeler's attorney and confirm that the agreement is done. And that was my understanding back in January, and I actually have an email between the two attorneys from January that say, yeah, we agree with this in principle. So that's why I asked the board to put this on the agenda, because I think it's at the point now where we feel comfortable asking you to act on it without the fear of maybe having to reopen it for a change. So and I'm just going to go over some of the changes we've made here on this plan. We've added some, and it's not on this sheet, but if you want to turn to sheet L 1.0, which is near the back of your plan set, I'm going to point it over here. This area here, this is the kind of the light brown is a dumpster. So we're planting Jolly Green Giant arborvitaes along this area right here as a screen toward the Wheeler property. And that was one of the agreements on the discussions between the two parties. And just so you know what a Jolly Green Giant is, it's like what's behind the town hall here. Those are the big ones that were put in. See, I don't know how old the town hall is, what, 8 years old, 7?
8 years, yeah.
You can see how they grow good.
Yeah, they grow 5 or 6 feet a year.
Yeah, they're awesome. So they're back there. It's just so you get a feel for it. So there'll be a nice screen there. In addition, we've agreed to put up a fence along this will be a wall. I know it's hard to kind of see, but this is a 6-foot-high solid vinyl fence along the top of the wall. And so that will additionally be a screen. This area here, if you look up on the screen here, I know it's hard to see, and you can see if you follow my hand, this area, a lot of this area is currently being used by Miss Wheeler for her daycare. So we'll be granting her an easement, which is about 24 feet wide, basically to the wall, all the way to the end of the property here, which isn't being used, but she can use it, and that will allow her, and I forget the wording, I read the easement, but it's perpetual exclusive, so that means she can use it as if it's her own property, and it's not as if Briarwood or any future owner can go over there. So it's perpetual and exclusive for her use.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? So I just want to clarify.
Yes.
That's within the green field area there that you're talking about, not the white, correct?
That's correct. The
Okay.
white is, green is our property,
Right.
anything off it is ours, so it's definitely the green.
Okay, thank you.
And then there is also a monetary agreement as part of it, which it really has nothing to do with the board. So, and then the final thing that, which I mentioned earlier, but it's in my cover letter, is because one of the limitations before was the number of bedrooms, because when you build a septic system is designed on a number of bedrooms. So the number of bedrooms for the previous designer was a 2-bedroom a 2-bedroom unit with a home office, which seems to be the flavor of the month the last couple of years. So they had home office, but now, because it is on sewer, the size of the location, the size of the septic system is not an issue anymore. So it's been transferred to 3 bedrooms, and that's what we're showing. Could it be 2 and 1? Yes, but we're showing 3, and that's what it will be based on as far as sewer connection fees to the town.
So the footprint of the building does not change, it's just the usage of that particular room.
Yes. And
Even the internal layouts don't change, it's just labeling it.
I would say yes, but I haven't gone, back and forth. I can tell you the footprint hasn't changed, the facade hasn't changed, the height hasn't changed. So I would guess yes. There was a question, I think the number of, so in Foxborough, under the zoning bylaws, you're allowed, it's weird. So for a single-family house or a 2-family house, you need 1 parking space. So you can have a 4-bedroom house and it's only required to have 1 space, okay? For a multifamily dwelling, it's what I always call it 2.25 spaces per unit. So that's, because the way it's written is you have 2 spaces per unit and 1 for every 4 units, 2.25. So that would mean that we would need, 12 here, right?
20.
No, 10, yeah, 10. So we have, every one of these units has an internal garage, as you can see by here. They have an internal garage, they have an outdoor space, and we've given enough space so that the car can park and cars can go back and forth. So basically, each unit has 2 parking spaces. And down below there, you can see we have visitor parking or additional parking. That's 9 additional spaces. So for all intents and purposes, we have 3 spaces per unit and a little bit extra. And then there was some question about, and I forget who brought this up, but, you know, this always comes up, like, what if you're having a party at your house and this? So I have 2 answers to that. I have the legal answer, which is we're in compliance with the zoning, which is 2.25. And now I'll have, the practical answer is you could park across the street at the new town
Center.
senior center.
Community center.
Yeah, community center. I always want to call it a senior center. So that's how this lays out now, and I think I'll stop right now.
And just to re-clarify from previous, iterations and conversations at the board, all of any issues with public safety, fire, et cetera, in terms of being able to circulate around the building, get whatever size vehicles they need to be able to get in and out, ambulance, et cetera, that's all been covered, correct?
Yes, is that yes. And we did that, I think we were done last fall.
And the
I think so,
grading,
too. I just
you
wanna-
mentioned grading issues too, you changed some grading, because was the Wheeler's yard gets
Yes.
water, so?
And
Yes.
the other side, my side floods too.
So what we did is I can go over that here, right here. So right here, so this area right here is low. It's all low, and like last spring and early summer, we had all that heavy rain. It was like 4 times the normal amount, and it was flooding. So what we're doing here now is we're placing, this is a flared end, or it's like an inlet. It's an inlet right here. It's in the low spot just on our side of our property. So we can grade all of this to this low spot, and it will be captured and put into an 18-inch drain, which is right out here. When the town redid Main Street, I think back in the early 90s, Mr. Neil Ferguson, who owned this property, asked the town, to put in a stub there, drain stub, so that will be tied in. So we'll be capturing that. And that is also, on the Wheeler property, they can also grade to that. So if they want to work their backyard, they can grade to that as well. We're going to grade all of the Briarwood property to go to it. So that's how we're addressing that low area.
And there was a comment from a person in the audience, where's your house, if you don't, and give us your name for the record,
Are you
please.
doing the same thing, Mr. Buckley, on the opposite side against my house where we have flooding on the Glenwood side?
He needs to talk at a
Yeah,
microphone.
you need to go to a microphone and just give us your name and address, if you don't mind.
Where is your house?
Sorry, Erica Dolen, 17 Glenwood. My question is, I understand completely everything you're doing here on the Wheeler side. On this side, where our house is, we had discussed several meetings back about the flooding issues that occur. And if you're raising your building up, then that's going to create even more water pooling in between. So I wasn't sure, does your new system integrate with getting water away from where I am?
So what we do is this. There's 2 ways to deal with this. There's structural ways with like piping and inlets, and then the other way we deal with it is by grading. So what we'll be doing is capturing a lot of the water, so you can't tell from this plan, but here, I'll show you. From this corner right here, and actually, right in this area here, this was the first town's water tank. You've seen probably pictures of it. So this is a hill in this area back here, and it all drains this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Behind Miss Claire's house is the lowest spot in the area, so she captures a lot of this runoff. And then there's also, over in this area here, there's kind of a break in this area here that goes this way. So the runoff, like for example, all of this area that goes this way now.
Right.
We're going to be capturing a lot of it in the roof drains. The roof drains won't be able, it's not like the roof drains on like my house or somebody's house, where all those roof drains will be tied into gutters, downspouts, and then the downspouts will go into this drain system in the front yard here. So any of this area that used to drain in that direction, over this direction or even in this direction, will now be captured. So we're taking this out of the equation and piping it into this drain system in the front. And that's how we balance. So we check it to make sure we're balancing in any direction we're going, this direction, or this direction. And that's part of the review that the town's engineer, peer reviewer, looks at when they do their analysis.
I see. Okay, so that's going to essentially, what's in purple there is like a French drainage system. Is this?
Is this what that is?
Those are grades.
Okay, so
Those
that's
are finished
not-
grades. The drain system around the building is, it's hard to see. It's kind of this red.
Okay, but I do understand. So.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill, as a point of clarification, you had mentioned when the option of sewer came in that you were able to lower.
Right.
Yeah, we lowered the.
So you're
buil-
not raising the grade of the property as much as you were planning on. You're going to be going lower than what you would have.
Yeah, well, I think we dropped it about a foot, maybe a foot and a half, but it's still higher than it is today.
Right, right.
It's still higher than it is today. And we have walls, so there's gonna be a wall here, facing Mrs. Wheeler's house, and then down here, there's gonna be a wall facing Miss Sinclair's house.
Right.
And that is basically where you're removing trees.
Yes. Well, actually, no, because the wall is probably 8 or 10 feet inside our property line.
Okay.
So we could have left those trees there, but we're gonna take them down. And I totally agree with her. Once you go out there and look at them, they're dead, or they're dying, and they're big. So you just wanna get rid of them now.
So that fence will be back, the wall rather, because I know you've got a fence showing on the property line, it seems anyway, based on sheet L1, 0. But that wall will be back probably 8 or 10 feet from that garage.
Yes, yes. Yep, significantly. And that wall at its highest point is 5 feet. For the most part, it's 4 feet or lower.
Any other questions from the board? I have one other question. Mrs. Wheeler, are you present tonight? Can you come up to the mic? I just want to ask you a question, and I want to hear your reply.
Margaret Wheeler, 8 Garfield Street.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Buckley made statements about the legal settlement, and I just want to make sure that, since you're present, that you can confirm that it's your opinion that, yes, an agreement has been made, and that everything is as pretty much as he said, so we can move forward. Because if it wasn't, I would recommend to the board that we hold off until we know for sure that it's been agreed to and everything's kosher.
Well, it hasn't been processed.
He said that. He did say that, but
Okay.
but
Yeah.
verbally,
Yes,
the
yes,
agreement's
yes,
been
yes,
agreed.
verbally, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your candor.
Bill, just a quick question on that inlet area and that whole issue. Does grading really need to be done on the Wheeler property for that to function practically the way it's intended?
I don't know, because we don't have survey on it. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, that is pretty close to the low spot,
Is it?
so I don't know. We don't, we just don't go on other people's, unless we have to, we don't go on.
Well, I
for
would just
grade
hate to
purposes.
have a situation where, geez, this was supposed to work and it's not working. So
No,
that's the only reason I raised the issue.
I agree. One of the things that we said that's in the agreement is verbiage that says, the file grading and drainage infrastructure at 73 Main Street shall ensure that no surface runoff runs off onto any Wheeler property. So that's our responsibility to make sure that we're not running it off onto her property. And that's all that the agreement is.
And then when it does,
Or if it does.
then what?
Well, if
Yes,
it
to
does,
fix
then
it.
they're responsible to come back and fix it.
But that wasn't my question. My question is whether that would address any existing issues on the Wheeler property, which kind of had been discussed, at least informally.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt, you know, I don't know, but I've said it, that pipe has been set low enough and in a location where if there is issue, then you definitely can get the water to it. It's not a question of that. I just put it, I can't answer your question because I just don't have any of the grades in the backyard there.
He had talked about putting a pump in there on one of the first meetings that we had.
Could you come up there to the microphone and just give your name and address for the record? Thank you.
Charlene, Hobel, 6 Garfield Street.
So you were saying?
I think the
They
pump-
talked about putting a pump in, one of the original meetings, they talked about putting in some kind of a pump.
I don't recollect that, but do
I
you?
think there was a discussion about Miss Sinclair's property, and one of the things I said was, we looked at fixing her issue by tying her backyard, which is very depressed, into the town drain system on Main Street. But the problem is the drain on Main Street is higher than her backyard. So I think what I said is the only way that could happen would be to pump it.
So we're not doing that.
No.
Now, if you've got a good gravity flow system, you're not gonna need to pump. You only need to pump if it's gotta go uphill.
And then the other question that I had is this where Carolyn's fence is? Like, do you own all the way over to her fence?
I think there's a wall there, so yes.
Because there's some huge dead trees in there, too.
Yeah,
Gonna take those out, too?
I don't know. I mean, we probably have during the construction, the Briarwood would have their tree clearing company go in there and evaluate it, because it's certainly a better idea to take them out during construction than have to go in there after everything's built.
Right.
So, that's a good point. I mean, I'll have that discussion with my client.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from anyone in the audience here for that? Please go
I
back
have
up.
a statement as well. Is this the appropriate time?
It is, if you want to go up to the microphone.
Erica Dolen again, 17 Glenwood. Just gonna. Okay. I know you've seen those before, but those two documents. So, quick question, Mr. Buckley, are you still putting a fence? I know a couple meetings ago we had talked about a temporary fence during construction, and then you'll be putting a permanent fence after. Is that still accurate on this portion here? Where my backyard and our kids play meet your new property?
No, there's no fence proposed there. There's a wall, there's a stone wall along the back there, that, as we talked about, is set well inside the property line. And depending on the height of the wall, it will have probably a 4-foot fence on top, because it's a building code issue.
And is that running here, though, in this area? Will there be a fence separating?
Yep.
Okay, so there will be. And then you said you were gonna plant?
So let me just clarify again. There's going to be a wall there.
Yes.
And it could be up to, it's up to 4 feet high. And if it is more than, I think, 4 feet or 3 feet, it needs to have a 4-foot fence on top of it, which it's for fall protection. So that's what will be there. It's not a stockade fence or anything like that. It's a wall with a fall protection fence on top.
Right, but there will be a distinct separation of where my kids are and where the new people's children are. Like,
Well,
it's
there's
not,
already a wall along your property line.
well, there's the natural stones, yes,
Right,
that is
That's a
correct.
stone wall along there.
Yes, correct. So are you still going to be planting more trees there as well, since you're cutting down all the ones that are there now?
We're not cutting down all the ones that are there now. We're cutting the ones down next to Miss Sinclair's house.
But right now, this is all trees.
Yes.
This is all going to be cleared out, which means, are there going to be some natural buffers between where we are and where they will be, was what I
Yes.
meant. Like, I'm not saying the Jolly Green Giants, although
Right.
those would be gorgeous. I don't know if you plan on putting something else.
So
That's
let
all.
let me share another plan with you. And for the board members, this is sheet L 1.0, which is the the landscape plan. So I'm going to put the landscape plan up here if I can get this out. Here we go. I don't know why I'm having a problem here. Okay, so this is the landscape plan. I know it's a little bit hard to see. Let me make it a full page. So this is the area you're talking about. So this is 17 Glenwood. This is the multifamily that we permitted and was built a couple of years ago. So along here is what I've been talking about here. This will be a stone block wall. So on top of it, we have a combination of, like down here, you can see here, these are arborvitaes. And I'm just looking to make sure the numbers here. TO is arborvitaes and junipers. So it's arborvitaes and junipers right here, which screens Miss Sinclair's house. Then there's a fence along the top here. See it? Actually, it is 6 foot high. So I thought it was going to be a 4, but this is a 6 foot high. And then along here, which is the back against, this is your structure. So again, there'll be a wall, and on top of that, again, these are arborvitaes and junipers.
Understood. Okay. So I don't want to go off on a, thank you for that. I don't want to just go off on this huge thing, and I am going on a deployment soon, so you're not going to hear from me again. But I do have to say this because this is just, I know that you've heard my opposition to the project before, and the final issue that I'm going to raise today is that the planning board has a civic duty to uphold subdivision control laws as well as being consistent and fair in your rulings. Our town trusts and depends on your rulings to be equitable as well as consistent and not to waver from that under any circumstances. So with that being said, consistency in rulings is my primary point today. This is demonstrated with this final example. As you can see in the document I passed around, 73 Main Street is 1.3 acres and is long and narrow in shape. My parcel is 1.45 acres and is more of a square. The reason this matters is because why was Briarwood reduced to and granted only 6 units on my 17 Glenwood Avenue project, the larger and more equipped shaped parcel, but they're asking for 8 units at 73 Main Street, the smaller, more irregularly shaped parcel. The lot at 73 Main Street has only 183 feet front to back between the Glenwood side of the house and Margie Wheeler's house. Minus the potential easement and litigation would mean even less space. The smallest side on Glenwood is 239 feet, which is 56 feet larger, and we have less units. I know these are a lot of numbers, but what I'm trying to say is the buffer between the homes is going to be incredibly small should this project of this size be approved. And it was brought up last meeting that this is America and people can build where they want on their property. I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment, but I beg you to please consider the size and shape of this parcel and its close proximity to us at 17 Glenwood and 8 Garfield. The fact that they're asking for 8 units and potentially up to 24 residents is incomprehensible, where we only have 12 on a larger property with 6. Regarding the 17 Glenwood Avenue project and the note to consistency, on May 9th, the minutes state, May 9th, 2019, the minutes stated that a minimum of a 35-foot buffer must be maintained, and in fact, you ended up deciding at 73 feet, which is a lot, and that's great because there's a lot of natural terrain in between me and the next structure. On July 25th, Mr. Buckley presented a new sketch of 17 Glenwoods, reducing it from 8 to 6. Especially of note from these minutes was that the side setbacks would be the 73 feet from property line to, quote, ensure removal of less trees and ensure better buffering between the parcels. This is crucial to your requirement as the board to be consistent. 73 feet is a lot larger than the proposed separations here now. And then again on October 24th, Mr. Rhodes stated that he would like conditions including that there would be limited clearing of terrain. In any event, I just hope that these motions would be respected as part of planning board approvals. This little piece of woods in between is an aesthetic buffer in our already dense neighborhoods. If it's built, we will practically be holding hands out of our windows, and I question who would want to live there. This is not a low-income area. It's a nice wooded lot, and our homes are valued at over $800,000. As a board, please be consistent in your rulings and not have any bias. Please consider the aesthetic of this proposed property and its impact on the neighbors and its town. I do personally feel shoving it in sideways doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, and it doesn't quite have enough room in its lot for 8. I feel that is excessive. I do ask in closing that you would please, if approved, at bare minimum, be consistent in your judgment and reduce the size of their project by 2 units, making it 6 in total, like you had them do at 17 Glenwood. Once again, when you look at the size of the lots, their shapes and proximity to neighbors, allowing 8 units at 73 Main Street is entirely inconsistent with your previous rulings. Lastly, since they have the utmost confidence that this will not exacerbate our existing flooding issues, they shouldn't have a problem with me asking if Briarwood could possibly do like an 18-month post-completion contract, including a plan to mitigate any potential new flooding issues, belay my last, caused by the Main Street project, or a course of action plan should this happen. They've assured that the conditions of my yard will remain the same or better. I don't feel that there should be an issue, but I am concerned post-construction, when it's all said and done, if this unit at a higher, if this project as a higher elevation is causing more flooding between myself and the Sinclairs, what then? I mean, it's already a like swimming pool back there when it's really crappy, and it could get even worse. And then what do we do? So I apologize for this super long statement. I'm just concerned about the consistency and going from my units being 6 and now we're throwing 8, and it just doesn't make sense. I don't mean to insult anyone. It's a concern based on the math. So, okay, thank you.
So the one thing you can sit, the one thing I will address immediately is your feeling that you need an 18-month contract. I don't believe you'll need any contract because Mr. Buckley, as the engineer, is going to be responsible for what happens there. And the gentleman who owns Briarwood is going to be responsible financially if there's got to be corrections to be made. Mr. Buckley is insured as an engineer, a professional engineer, and I wouldn't wish it a problem on him, but he understands what his responsibility would be by engineering it to this degree and making a commitment that there won't be any additional flooding. They cannot spill their water onto your property. That's clear. Okay. So I don't think you need a contract, and if need be, if you were to come in here with photographic evidence, we would call them back in and say, you need to correct this.
Understood.
All right?
Add it as a condition, just for peace of mind.
Please, go right ahead.
Oh, I was just seeing if maybe we could add that as a condition just for peace of mind,
Which part?
to ensure that flooding conditions are mitigated in the rear portion of the property.
Okay.
Is that all right?
I think the wording should be, we're not mitigating, we're not making it, it's not our job to make it better. We would love to.
Correct.
If that's what we're talking about. But our job, regulatorily wise, is to not make it worse. So if you can just somehow put whatever the wording is in there for that.
Okay.
Because mitigate, because,
No, I
10 years from now, when somebody's reading that, they'll go, you were supposed to mitigate it.
Yeah, no,
So-
I agree.
She agrees with you.
I just want to make sure the record, the decision states that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll wordsmith it.
It's fine, thanks.
So I understand your concern, and personally, I'm not ready to speak to why they're requesting the 8 and whether we should, be telling them that they can, if they can fit it in there and it's legal and legitimate. We should certainly take that into consideration, and we hear what you have to say, but I don't think I can say anything more greater than that at the moment.
Understood.
I'd like to ask one question that may clarify.
Sure.
Will we ask to grant any waivers on setback?
No.
Okay. What is the approximate distance from the closest point of that building to the property line of 18 Glenwood?
Which building?
17, he's asking. I think.
Your new building to 17
To
Glenwood.
17, I'm sorry.
So the distance between the buildings is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Just to confirm.
just out of curiosity.
It is about 140 feet
At the closest point?
at the closest point, which would be,
Mm-hmm.
where am I? Here
Yeah.
to here.
Okay.
So just to reference the plan for you all, on the very first page, there's the breakdown of dimensional requirements, setbacks,
Right,
what is
right.
required by our bylaws and what is provided, just
Yeah.
to make sure everybody sees it.
I just wanted Mr. Buckley to speak to it so it's in record.
The point being is, this application is in compliance, and in most of these parameters substantially so. Not all, but
So I think one of the things we've done here is, I think we have put in a very substantial buffers around the outside. We have walls, we have fences, we have evergreens around all of the areas, and especially next to the single-family homes, which is the area we're trying to protect, from multifamily to a single family. And I think if you recall the discussions on 17, that was the issue, was because we had the neighborhood to the north, the new neighborhood, Peterson Drive. And so those were single-family homes. We were trying to create a larger buffer for them. That was where all the additional buffer went. And then along the rear, which was what we were talking about, not clearing, that's where that additional, because you only need, I think it's 25 feet. I think it's a 25-foot buffer zone between a multifamily and a single-family lot line. And along the rear there, we maintain substantially more than that. So that is one of the things I think that we were talking about here. Again, we were trying to maintain a substantial buffer along that rear, and we augmented it with plantings as well. So that's what's going on here. Yes, it is a multifamily zone, and actually I have a plan I could put up that shows the whole, like, within a half a mile around, all the multifamilies and stuff that are there. And that's just the way it is. If the town wanted to have larger buffers, we would have to comply with that. But we are in compliance with the regs. I think we're more than in compliance with the buffering requirements. Again, substantial plantings and walls and fences. And that's it, I guess. And there's two other things I guess I'll mention because we're looking for. My client has also agreed to take the 8-inch water line from 17 Glenwood and wrap it through the property to connect out to Main Street. I've already mentioned this before, but I'm just reminding you. So that's a significant mitigation because right now Glenwood Ave is a dead end. So this loops it through and creates a better pressure system throughout the area. And then the second thing that's not well known, but my client paid for the sewer design for the entire Main Street property for the community center, the community center. So he's gone out of his way to do mitigation that has benefits town-wide and not just for him. He didn't need to do that. He could have just tied into the sewer and waited for it, but it was faster for us to design it than for the town to put out a bid and do all of that. And he doesn't need to run an 8-inch water line, which is probably $150 a foot. And it's probably, let's see. It's probably 300 feet. You know what? I need to go back. I'm working off a reduced scale plan, and I gave you a bad number. The closest these two buildings are is 70 feet.
Okay.
Not 140. So that's a correction. It's a half-scale plan. So I just want to point out there's not just trying to meet the standards that are put in the town zoning bylaw, but we're also trying to create town-wide mitigation for basically infrastructure in this area.
One more thing you want to say?
I do, yep. Super brief. Sorry, Mr. Becker, the water line that you just mentioned tapping at 17
Glenwood, forgive my ignorance, does that impact me in any way? I don't know what that means.
It means that you're going to get better water pressure
Okay,
through that area, because right now you're at the end of a dead-end loop.
understood.
It's not a loop, it's dead end.
Correct.
So we're looping it now through, and there's an easement on the condo property
I see.
to connect into that line and run it down onto Main Street.
Okay, so
it's-
but there won't be any disruption in our service during that time? Understood.
No, it shouldn't be.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Bill, is there a stub there already installed?
I'm pretty sure. I would hope we did that. Because I knew we were going to do this.
Yeah.
And we had planned for that. That's why there's an easement there to connect through.
Anything else from anyone else in the audience? Questions, comments? Anything else on the board?
I think that one of the biggest concerns we had was the conditions with the Wheeler property, and to find that has reached some sort of an amicable agreement stands, speaks volumes, so. Because that was not a good situation.
Nothing here.
Not-
Is there anything in the
Staff?
record?
Gary or Tracy, any comments?
Harry or Tracy, any comments?
No, I'm good with it, I'm familiar with it.
What did he say?
He said he's good with something.
Okay.
Tracy, anything? Give me a black.
I'm good.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, can I ask one question now that you can actually hear me?
Please.
Bill, the easement for Miss Wheeler, what happens when she sells that property?
It's perpetual, so it runs with the land. So whoever sells it to it runs with them, it will run forever.
Okay, thank you.
So it's in perpetuity.
Then, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Roll call.
Carrie, aye.
Tracy, aye.
Jeff, I.
Kevin, aye.
Ron, aye.
Tracy, I.
That's why she's not making the motion.
Tracy, you've been awful quiet. Would you like to make a motion?
Can't even hear us.
Huh?
I'm having trouble hearing a little bit.
We can hear you. I guess you can.
Are you waiting on me for something?
No, we'll let Jeff do it. He's sitting in your
Are
seat.
you all done here?
Yes.
I'd make a motion that the board approve the site plan currently submitted, the application for 73 Main Street, 8-unit multifamily dwelling, Briarwood Construction Company, with conditions with our standard conditions, as well as other conditions that have been outlined tonight.
It's a special permit, by the way, not a site plan.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, it says it right there. Special permit application. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further questions from the board?
Do you have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Gary, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Jeff, aye.
Kevin, aye.
Ron, aye.
Very good.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all for
much.
attending and for giving us your points of view and questions. We
And for
appreciate it.
hanging in a long process.
Yes, and for hanging in. Okay. It being sometime past 7:20 PM, we have a request for a minor modification to site plan approval for Gillette Stadium for the installation of an outdoor pickleball court in Lot 12B. Thanks. Someone's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is excellent. We have a full crew today.
Full court.
Full court press.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. While Derek is setting up, I think I can, if you'd allow me to make quick introductions.
Please.
And for the record, Peter Tam, counsel for the applicant. With me, Brian Early, Patriot Place, Matt Pekarsky, and Beth Wehrling are here on behalf of the Craft Group. And Jody, I might butcher your last name, but is it Kulidi? Kulidi. Of 11-0 Pickleball. Along with Derek of VHB, who you know. The first matter of two that we have before you, and we appreciate the board's time and those members of the board that are remote, as well as staff, is a minor modification, as you had identified, to an existing parking lot in proximity to the South Marketplace. This is a small lot that is adjacent to the South Marketplace parking areas. And this is the existing location of the winter skate activities in the winter, seasonally. So I'll turn it over to Brian to explain the purpose and the goals. He, in turn, will turn it over to Jody, and then Derek can touch on the site aspects, and we can address any questions. From our perspective, this one is a modification to the approved Gillette Stadium Patriot Place site plan approval.
Great, thank you, Peter. Brian Early, Patriot Place Craft Group. So we've been, like just about every other developer in the country, looking at pickleball as an opportunity. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States for the last 4 years. And probably back in 2020, just around COVID, it certainly shot up in popularity, and it's when we started looking at opportunities for facilities on property. At the time, we were looking specifically at outdoor facilities. And if just a little background, what is now the Hobby Lobby space, with 55,000 square foot building we have since put in. We looked at doing a sort of a hybrid outdoor facility. And again, when you're talking 2020, 2021, that was all the rage. We couldn't get it done. The company we were working with was just, they wanted everything, us to build it out, millions and millions. Anyway, so we focused then on, how we're going to do something with a significant indoor facility. And then we looked at, okay, what kind of operator do we want here? We're very fortunate, or I was very fortunate to be introduced to Jody Coolity, who happens to be a Wrentham resident, but is also one of the foremost consultants of pickleball facilities around the world. I was introduced to her because she had a vision for a pickleball facility at Patriot Place when she returned from the Far East, where she had spent a lot of time doing business in that part of the world, and picked up a family love for the sport when she returned. I was immediately impressed by Jody and her vision, but that she had a long way to go to build a business. And so one of the things we started doing, and some of you may know this, we've done 2 different pickleball tournaments at Patriot Place. They're pop-up tournaments each of the last 2 years that have been run by 11-0. And Jody and her team have done an outstanding job of running those tournaments. Then we had the opportunity in the Christmas Tree Shop space, which has been vacant since the Christmas Tree Shop went bankrupt, to see what could be done with the indoor 40,000 square foot facility. I think you've seen some of those. You'll see some of those renderings and visions that Jody has for that. But what we're here tonight to talk about is the fact that in order to do a first-rate facility, as I've seen around the country, you have to have both indoor as well as outdoor. And when we moved winter skate to Lot 12B, as Peter mentioned, it became apparent to me that we had the solution for the outdoor facility in an adjacency to where the indoor facility is going to be, without disrupting a lot of things already happening at Patriot Place and Gillette Stadium, by utilizing a lot that we've already taken out of play, if you will, and just making it a year-round recreational facility. So I'm going to turn it over to Jody to introduce herself and for her to show you some of her vision for both the indoor facility, which is not really part of tonight, but then we'll get to the outdoor facility. Then it'll be turned over to the technical folks to talk about the minor modification that we're seeking tonight. So, Jody?
Hi, everyone. Jody Cullity, founder and CEO of 11-0 Pickleball. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and hope one day to get you all on the court if you're not already there already. As Brian mentioned, we've been working on this project for roughly 2 years now. I've visited 60 facilities domestically, 3 internationally, so I've really felt a strong connection to not only the pickleball community players, but more of the pickleball industry landscape and what the future growth looks like for communities specifically like Foxborough, Massachusetts. I'm very fortunate. You'll see in the deck here that we have finally found our home at Patriot Place. As you can imagine, after traveling the country looking at all these facilities, we could have opened anywhere. And the reason we chose to open and partner with Patriot Place is because the amazing community that your town committee and all the surrounding town committees like Wrentham, Mansfield, et cetera, have really put on and given back to the community. So here we'll have in our indoor facility about 9 indoor courts of food and beverage operation. And then what we'll get into specifically in this meeting is our outdoor operation. We know that Foxborough has outdoor pickleball courts. We are absolutely ecstatic that that is a big part of the community and the fitness growth. And so we're only here to build on top of that with more specific programmings, community building, and then more importantly, drive more economic jobs and work with local businesses. You know, I grew up 3 minutes from Patriot Place. Coming back home, this is definitely not only a passion project for me, but I started this company from my parents who really loved and enjoyed pickleball. And I've seen how it transforms not only my own personal household, but all the surrounding communities at Foxborough, Wrentham, and around Patriot Place. So our main goal with this facility is to become a flagship pickleball location in the Northeast region, and more importantly, the heart of pickleball in the New England area. So as Derek will show briefly here, these are just some of our concepts. So, what we're really proud to be at Patriot Place is a premier facility. As you can tell, there is a lot of community building around the courts. And that's something that, again, with the help of the Foxborough Town Committee and all the surrounding neighborhoods, we can really generate with exactly the style, architecture, and design that we are implementing in our space. There's a few more renderings, and then we'll get to our outdoor courts. The one thing that I really love about the Christmas tree shop location, it will hopefully become an anchor fitness facility in the surrounding region. And then our outdoor courts really adds that extra special connection when it's good weather. We all know living in New England, we have 9 months of pretty gloomy weather and then a great 3 to 6 months of playable outdoor season. So we want to make sure that in Lot 12B, which you see up here, that our 6 championship-sized courts, along with a proposed food and beverage program as well, in an activity space, really complements our main indoor facility, which we will talk about the main indoor facility at a later date. So I'd love to really just highlight, again, the goal is to get all the tenants at Patriot Place involved, all the community members involved, but absolutely operate this in a healthy, safe, and more importantly, community-focused, centered. So love to turn it over to the technical team to get into some of those details tonight, and then happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you. For the record, Derek Massionis with VHB. I'm going to hit on some of the site access as we're talking about 12B and vehicles coming off of Route 1 here. So Lot 12B is pretty accessible from any of the eastern entrances off of Route 1 from P9 all the way up to P6. So as you can see here in blue, here are some of the vehicular routes that will take you to the dedicated parking, which is going to be Lot 14A for the outdoor pickleball facility at 12B. As you can see through the orange routes, it's a pretty direct route from 14A. You can come right underneath. That's the main event day pedestrian route that takes you to the stadium. You can enter directly into 12B there. And then
I'm sorry, Derek, could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, sorry, can you not hear me as well?
We have 2 members that are on Zoom, so they
sorry
need to
about
hear.
that. And then the other pedestrian route is, really dedicated from the internal 11O space. There's 2 dedicated crossings, and then a protected pedestrian sidewalk that leads you at a pretty direct route from the 11O facility directly to 12B. So here's what we're calling our recreational programming. As you can see on the top, this is the layout for the 6 pickleball courts in 12B. And then on the bottom, as I'm sure you are familiar with, is the proposed ice rink layout that's been out there this season. So I'll touch on some of the site layout improvements that we're doing as part of 12B. They're really minor in nature, I will say. The first item is just on the south side of the lot. There's 2 existing curb cuts to get you into that lot. We're closing that one off and providing a little bit of additional landscaping through that curb cut there. We're going to maintain the existing curb cut on the east side of 12B, provide some accessible parking, and then it's a 25-foot pedestrian route that will get you out and around to the courts. This is wide enough, like I said, 25 feet for emergency access if needed. As part of 12B as well, we're going to create this grade arm. As I'm sure you are aware, pickleball courts need to be fairly flat. The topography out there in the existing parking lot is roughly like 3.5%. So we're going to be pitching that back to virtually flat, having some consistent pitch down to the existing stormwater system that's out there today. Our intention is to maintain all of that existing infrastructure, keep the grading patterns as they are today. As we kind of alluded to, there's a small space for food and beverage, and then just north of that, there's going to be a small 10 by 10 shed that I can get into for some utility improvements on the site. So here's what we're calling our banked parking program, just to show you that, the layout that we have put together for the pickleball courts does, in fact, kind of translate back to parking spaces. This layout right here proposes 95 spaces from the existing lot, which is 128. So here are some of the utility improvements that we are doing as part of this project. And there really is only two. We're running a new electrical service to that shed. And we're doing a water tap, only an 1.5 inch line that's going to be coming and stubbing up through that shed as well. As I mentioned, we're trying to keep even though we're altering the grading within the parking lot, we're going to maintain all that existing stormwater infrastructure. We're reducing our net impervious area on the parcel or on the parking lot. So really intending to utilize all of that existing stormwater. As far as lighting goes, I can get into that on the next slide. So out there today, there's 2 existing 40-foot parking lot lights that are standard across most of the event day lots. Those are within kind of the footprint of the pickleball courts. We're proposing to relocate those out to that landscape grade arm that's going to go around there. So those will be relocated to the landscape arm, and that's kind of what you would see as your typical parking lot level lighting standard throughout the stadium. And then that is going to be supplemented with additional 30-foot poles, which will have sport level fixtures on them, which you can see kind of lights up the court, and that proposes to be around 5 additional lights within the landscape area. And I think with that, we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Just one note, the sound has been inconsistent, so make sure that you're speaking into the microphones.
Okay. So, few quick questions. Number one, is 11-0 going to run the ice skating and the pickleball, or they're just going to run the pickleball?
No, the 11-0 is going to, the space is going to be demised for 11-0 as part of their lease. They're going to give rights back to Patriot Place to operate the ice rink during winter months.
Okay. And in the original plan that you showed there with the parking lot next, that'll be parking just for 11-0 during that season? That 14B or whatever it was over there?
14A, I think it was. Well, that's parking every day. It's sort of it's not dedicated to them.
Okay.
It's the most adjacent parking, just like it was for the ice rink. But of course, on event days, that would become, that's.
And traffic flow, is Chick-fil-A being built just above that? Is that where the Chick-fil-A is going?
Chick-fil-A is above 14A in lot 19, yes.
And I have one other question related to this.
Just, and forgive me here, so do I understand this correctly, that both the ice rink and the pickleball installations will be seasonal, and you'll also use this for parking? Or is that just a representation?
As Derek mentioned, it's banked parking in the event we didn't do pickleball and no longer did the ice rink. It could return very quickly as a parking field.
Yeah.
And on lighting, I'll presume that even though you're doing additional lighting, it's all going to be down lighting, no broadcasting into the sky or anything like that?
And just if you envision operationally, would patrons be required to report first to the 11-0 facility, the Christmas tree shop, before going to the site?
That's a great question. So we'll actually have a different operating team in the outdoor parking lot. So you have to check in with our staff that's outside. So our indoor facility, it's under the same umbrella. We'll have about 30 staff inside our indoor facility, and then we'll have around 10 to 5 staff, depending on the type of programming we're doing outside, in the outdoor. So essentially, picture yourself, you park in lot 14A or you park in lot 12A. You arrive to our check-in desk at the outdoor courts. You check in for your play, and then we have staff on standby for, again, to run certain programmings or just to be floaters in the space.
Just help me here, I'm just a little bit slow.
Sure.
So if you're playing inside, you would still report outside first?
Nope, you can,
You can go
depending
right
if you've
inside.
booked at the outdoor courts or the indoor courts.
Separate
you would
check-in.
arrive, yes.
Okay.
Gary, or,
Can you guys hear me?
yes, we
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
For the outdoor part of this, is there going to be some sort of structure put up to house the check-in desk and the employees?
That's a great question. As mentioned before in the site plan, that right next to the shed, we do have an envisioned check-in temporary structure that we will be bringing out. We'll also have some temporary shading as well on those hot days for players.
Okay, thank you.
Anything from you, Gary?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
And
Gary's getting ready to hit the court.
beyond the netting or fencing, I think it said netting on the plan, is there anything else that would be removed at the end of the season to make way for the ice rink?
Yeah, all of the fencing around the courts would come away, essentially back down to surface level.
Yep.
We protect the surface of the courts with what goes on top for the ice rink, but everything that would be part of the outdoor facility that was above ground would come away in the winter.
So is the surface of the courts asphalt, or is it the rubberized surface?
It's asphalt with a membrane and a very sophisticated painting of, creating of the courts in layers. We protect that with something similar to maybe, was the, we use on the stadium.
Matrix?
Yeah, Matrix or something, and then the rink would be built on top of it. One thing to point out is what the rink had this year was what we call a sandbox to level it.
Mm-hmm.
At a cost of about $170,000 to install it, remove it, and do it every year. By doing this project, we now have a completely level surface. We don't have to revisit that. We have to do it slightly, just certain things we have to do, but at a much reduced cost, much more efficient. We finally have a level spot for both pickleball and for the ice rink. Poor Jody has been running these tournaments in not ideal level conditions. If she's going to have a tournament of substantial players, the need is for a truly flat professional court surface, and that's what you'll have for that.
The guy uphill has an advantage.
Can I add another question? Movement, how much movement is expected from a pedestrian standpoint between the 11O building and the parking lot? Because that parking lot is kind of a death trap for people walking. So what's the thought there?
So Jody will answer the question on the number, but what you see, if you can see the diagram, that orange dotted line, that people don't probably realize that was originally installed as a pedestrian walkway, full sidewalk, lighted, that goes from it was for in front of Christmas Tree Shop, goes all the way out through that lot, goes all the way actually out into, creates the connection between the North Marketplace and the South Marketplace. So it was always designed for pedestrian flow. It just never developed into that. So it's not walking in a parking lot, it's walking on a dedicated sidewalk that was installed back in 2007.
And what about, thank you, what about crossing the main road?
That's what I was just going to say, Tracy. So the two driveways that you can see on the figure, right by the 11O building and then closer up to 12B, there's existing crosswalks in place today. And then, but as you work between lot 12A from south to north, there's a dedicated sidewalk that brings you to lot 12B.
And what about from lot 14A to 12B?
That would be utilizing the existing event day pedestrian route.
It's a tunnel, right?
There's a tunnel.
Yeah, it's a tunnel. So there's no conflict with vehicles where the blue line and the orange line cross. There's no conflict with vehicles there.
Do you currently have a pedestrian crossing signage leading up to that crossing?
You talk on the P9 roadway, on the main roadway?
The roadway that people will have to cross to
Currently,
get to.
Currently, we do not.
Okay. I think that would be something that would be helpful.
I completely agree with you.
you have to, retrain people.
Right, and we want people to slow down and know that people are crossing. However, I'm going to turn over to Jody to talk about volume. It's not a great volume.
Can I just ask one quick question? One more question. And I'm sorry if I missed this, is there going to be some sort of barriers around the full pickleball court area in case there's a driver that loses control, that they can't crash into those courts?
Matt, you want to?
Yeah. So, good evening. Matt Pekarsky with the Craft Group. Vehicles won't have access to the parking lot. So if you picture the way that, Derek, if you want to flip back to that previous graphic. So whether it's the rink or the pickleball, it doesn't matter. The great arm is going up through the parking lot is really, if you picture on the lower right-hand corners of the parking lot there's probably like a 3.5 foot grade difference there. And that pretty much exists all the way along the P9 roadway side. And then it obviously tapers down to nothing as you get further into the parking lot. But operationally, the only areas where vehicles will be allowed to come in would be those seeking accessible parking that are obviously going to either the ice rink and or the pickleball area, which would be the 6 spaces, or 5, I guess. I think there's 5 there. 5 spaces right there along the right-hand side. We'll have some form of a barrier just beyond that. As shown on the plan here, it's shown as the typical concrete pottery, we call it, the planters that would go across. We'll probably have a version of that with something that's removable, just for emergency access, if an ambulance or something needed to get down into that space, so they could drive further in. But it will be signed and blocked off from the public going in there.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to highlight just on her question on volume, so you guys can get more comfortable with the programming that we would be operating in the indoor and the outdoor. So what you'll see for pedestrian crossing, we do encourage people, naturally, pickleball players tend to stay at facilities for 4 hours. We like them to mingle and stay longer, of course. So we are actively working with Patriot Place and our architects on that specific signage. So there's no confusion if you have an indoor reservation or an outdoor reservation, you know exactly where you're going. And then more importantly, we do want to seek those that are outside to join us inside. So when it comes to numbers and volumes of people in there, it will be very lightly sprinkled groups that will be walking across that pedestrian walkway back and forth. The only time you'll see potentially a large amount of people is if we have specific programming for tournaments and events, which we've already operated for 2 straight years at Patriot Place and have a very strong working operational relationship with their parking attendants. So that is already in our operational plan to make sure on those larger capacity programming dates that there is no confusion, no safety issues getting from our indoor to our outdoor facility, particularly with that pedestrian walkway.
So when you have the tournaments, did you get much of visitors who wanted to watch the tournament happen? Where did you put them?
Absolutely. So we have designed a lot of spectator areas. And so that we mainly encourage a lot of spectation, a lot of community mingling, as we mentioned, a lot of food and beverage, cheersing, things like that. So on each court, we have seats. The fencing is also around the courts. And then even in our F&B area, we do have that barriered off as well. So when we do close for the night, that all gets locked up as one package.
But there's like stadium seating or some kind where people can actually watch the players.
Absolutely.
And cheer them on and whatever.
Temporary bleacher type seating.
Okay, great. And then, so I'm playing on the outdoor lot, and do you have bathroom facilities and shower facilities, et cetera, in the indoor?
Yes, in the indoor, we will have bathrooms and showers, and on the outdoor, we'll have temporary bathrooms, picture a more upscale porta potty.
So I'm out there, it's a hot day, I've been playing for a couple hours with my friends at 12B. Do I have the right to go into the indoor and use the shower facilities, et cetera?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
I have a question about the food and beverage. I know that you're going to be preparing the food and beverage inside and taking it out. How many cart loads or however you're going to convey it, how many times a day will you be making that trip? And will it be by cart or in an automobile?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think step one for us is to understand our site planning purposes for this meeting. And so we're happy to share at a later date what that exact food and beverage operation is. But our food and beverage operation is much smaller outdoors than it is in our indoor. We really encourage, those quick refreshments, the small bites outside, but to push people to our main restaurant in the indoor facility.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this will be subject to additional licensing, obviously, on food and beverage.
Right. Anything else? Staff?
We had Mr. Tam's letter states it, but we had a meeting with the department heads, and they offered comments, very minimal comments, that were addressed in the plan. So the only memo that I have is from fire department because they did not attend the meeting, but they have no issues.
Right, I see that. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we appreciate both Catherine and Gabby's coordination on the pre-filing and being able to dialogue with the department heads. For purposes of the board, the request before you is to approve this as a minor modification. That was a process that was established under the Patriot Place site plan approval. This clearly meets the standards for minor modification. Obviously, I think Gabby's point about implementing appropriate pedestrian signage subject to the review of planning staff would be an appropriate condition. Anything else that the board sees appropriate that we address, we're certainly prepared to accept. I think for Jody and for Brian, who've been working very hard to make this happen, they're excited about this. I think the town should be excited about this. There's tremendous job development potential here. Jody pointed out it's going to be engaging somewhat to the tune of 30 staff indoors, additional staff outdoors. So we're seeking the board's approval as a minor modification this evening. This is an existing parking lot, and it will be a multi-use function depending on the season. We think there's a lot of synergy there, and it'll activate and continue to activate this area consistent with your growth and zoning goals.
Okay.
Yeah, quick question. Thank you. Just in terms of beyond the application here tonight, for the original skating rink, was there not? And you had mentioned permitting for food, and beverage, anything like that. Was there permitting involved in the skating rink for construction purposes?
It's a temporary seasonal structure, so it was essentially engineered drawing and permitted.
The building permits were issued, so temporary building permits were issued for the tent structures as well as the sandbox.
And the deck.
Because of the height
process would be
requirements,
involved
and then the goal now is because if you're under 8 inches, you don't need a building permit. We'll probably still pull one anyways,
Yep.
but that would be the ideal scenario is we keep the sandbox less than 8 inches.
Yeah. Okay, just curious.
Anything from Gary or Tracy, we good?
Gary, anything from you? I think he said he was good.
No, I think it's good. It's very low impact.
All right, that being said, I'll make the motion to approve the request for minor modification site plan approval, Gillette Stadium, installation of outdoor pickleball courts in Lot 12B, Foxborough Realty Associates LLC,
With condition.
with conditions.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Roll call vote.
Gary, aye.
Tracy, I.
Jeff, aye.
Kevin, aye.
Ron, aye.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with it.
See you on the court.
Pock.
You play?
I look for
I
August.
played until I tore my Achilles, and unless she's going
So
to tell
now
me I
that
should go back to play,
Oh, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you very much.
You're not going to be occupying the whole Christmas tree shop, are you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for the 9 courts?
9 courts take up a lot of room. Big bar area.
What's there,
2,000 strong.
32 by 64?
Yeah, they're championship level, so she can have indoor championship courts all year round.
Cool.
And trust me, trying to find another use for 40,000 square feet.
Believe me, I,
A retail space? Come on.
hear ya.
Every day.
Every day. In this economy, thank you all.
It's only getting better, Brian. You're very welcome, thank you. All right, it being sometime past 7:30 PM, we have a public hearing site plan approval. No, I'm sorry, we have a, what? I'm losing my mind here.
You got it.
Yep. Public hearing site plan approval, 67 Washington Street, Lot 55B, expansion and associated site improvements for MPS LLC. Once
Thank
again,
you.
good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the second item on our agenda. This is a notice public hearing, as you pointed out. This goes back, many of us in this room will recall the parking expansions that resulted from acquisitions on this side of Route 1 in the early 2000s. And then that led to the development and expansion of parking as a result of Patriot Place and other economic development in the corridor. Most recently, we were focused on this lot back in 2022 with the expansion of Lot 55B, which is a subset lot here. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt Pekarsky, who will outline, his goals and the purpose and why we're seeking further parking reallocation here. And then Derek can get into the technical details. We understand that this will be subject to some peer review, so we're not expecting any action this evening by the board.
Great, thank you, Peter. So as Peter alluded to, in 2022, in the spring of that year, we were before the board for the expansion. That was a much more robust project at the time, upwards of, I believe, 3,000 or so spaces that spanned across all of the back of P10 and P11, including Lot 55, what was then to become Lot 55B. At that time, we pretty much expanded everywhere we could based on the kind of the physical and/or natural resource constraints that were in the parking lot there. And when that was the goal, and at the time, the board may recall there were really three drivers as to why that project occurred, which carried forward to this project, right? It was basically an expansion of the successful delayed exit egress parking lot program that we have in place for both north and south traffic coming on football games. Anecdotally, the year-over-year increase was 33% this year, increase in participation in that program. Obviously, it's a function of the team performance, so it did wane a little bit towards the end of the year, but started off very strong. Very successful program, helping to mitigate traffic post-event. Second reason is just, as we stated at the time, it is just the overall expansion and control of the parking spaces. We're just operationally better off when we can have more spaces, be in control of where people are walking, to and from the parking lots to the stadium. And then the third one, perhaps, a little more bigger or broader view, is just to be in control of our own destiny, right? As you know, there's still parking spaces up and down Route 1 that are not under our control, and could at any point in time be, repurposed for some other use other than event day parking. So with that said, those are the drivers back in 2022. The difference between now and then is obviously since that time we were actually approached by an abutter, the Griffin residence, which actually has a house in Walpole and a piece of land in the back of his parcel, which was actually in Foxborough. They approached us and said, hey, we're, for whatever reason, they were looking to sell their home, and, us being the logical abutters, it made sense for them to talk to us. I believe they talked to Rodman as well, because they abut Rodman's parcel as well. Long story short, that, was intriguing to us. However, there was a sliver of land in between that basically would make their parcel not all that effective or useful for us. So that led to some further discussions on Tim Griffin's part with his neighbor, the piece of land in between, who was anxious and eager to sell his parcel of land to us as well. So the board actually approved an A&R plan as part of that subdivision of that parcel back in, I believe it was November, when we were before you. And then ultimately, we closed on those 2 parcels in December of last year. And so with those 2 parcels in play, it just provided the opportunity to expand Lot 55B. And it's really those same 3 goals I alluded to earlier that, drove us in 2022 to do what we did are the same and applicable for this project before you here tonight. So the Lot 55B, the expansion is roughly 354 spaces, I believe. It's as shown on the figure here. Actually, Derek, can you just go back one for me? One slide. It's that upper right-hand corner of this slide, so the kind of the green shaded area. It's a little bit deceiving because some of the area looks like it's a lot bigger parking than it is. Some of that is actually it's the existing basin that was out there as part of the original Lot 55B expansion. So we're infilling that, putting parking over it, and then replicating a new basin adjacent to the proposed area, which Derek will talk about in a second. But the point being is it's not not as big as before, right? There's over 9,000 spaces across the street under our control, so this is 350 additional spaces. It's a meaningful number, but it's not, obviously as big or extensive as the previous approval before the board. So with that said, I think from, operationally, pedestrian flows will be the same as they are now. That's been operating with great success over there. That's actually what this figure is here. We included a traffic memo that was in Vanessa and Associates had put together. Again, it's a very similar theme and concept and approach to that traffic memo. It's just there were no real wholesale changes to the way people are getting to and from the parking lots. The nice thing about this is, you recall in 2022 with the bigger expansion prior to that, our delayed egress program was only in one parking lot. It was actually Lot 55A. And we were separating the north and south. And one of the constraints, it wasn't quite a 50-50 balance. So this actually gives us a little more balance of delayed capacity on the north now, which is very helpful. To the south, it was much easier to expand because we had Lot 44 and 45. Right. So anyways, it's just, there's a lot of operational benefit for us to have these additional spaces in place. So with that, I'll turn it over to Derek, who can talk through kind of the typical site design elements.
Great, thanks, Matt. As Matt kind of alluded to, the existing Lot 55B is fed off of this main drive here, which comes off of P10 North. So that's kind of where all the vehicles are loaded into the existing lot. As far as the kind of grading approach for existing Lot 55B, everything pitches to the middle where we have this grass swale. Stormwater is conveyed through a head wall and a culvert that essentially discharges to this existing basin. As Matt kind of mentioned, I'll flip over to the proposed condition here. As Matt mentioned, some of this area is within the existing limits of the previous 55B project. Our kind of limit of work is pulling just out, as you can see on the dashed line here. That's where we're kind of starting our limit of regrading, but ultimately keeping the same exact grading and stormwater patterns for this expansion. As Matt said, it's approximately an additional 354 spaces from adding on to the existing 663. Not sure if Matt touched on this as well, but this is the 4 Linden Way parcel that they own as well over the town line in Walpole, as well as 11 Nottingham Way. So we did put a little bit of a plan together just to show the horizontal setbacks kind of from your edge of parking lot to your closest residential houses there. Smallest being, just about 200 feet on the left-hand corner of the existing parking lot there.
It's worth pausing on this just for clarity, for the board's sake, because we're moving quickly. I think what Derek is outlining is that the 2 closest residential properties are in our control.
Right.
And that which is not was part of this acquisition, the Balagatti property.
Right.
And the only other direct abutter is the Rodman property, I believe. Correct?
Correct.
So, from your purposes in terms of buffering, we've taken that into consideration. I think the organization is made the effort, made the acquisitions. So essentially, the buffers are either in our control or they're commercial property.
So in the residentials, are they going to remain residential, or are you guys going to?
They are zoned residential, so presumably they will stay residential.
Okay.
Thanks. Just touching on a little bit more of the proposed layout. Similar to the existing 55B, we'll continue the chain link fence all around, get into a little bit of a steeper slope on the south side of the lot here, so there'll be a guardrail with a fence equipped on top of that. And as I mentioned, I can flip over to the grading plan so we can take a look at that. But really maintaining the existing drainage patterns that are out there today. Everything will continue to pitch to this grass swale. Everything kind of on the right side of the expansion will pitch back to that swale as well. That'll get conveyed through the head wall into a closed drainage system and work to the sediment forebay, which will overtop into this existing, or proposed, infiltration basin. It is worth noting that, this is designed in accordance with Mass DEP stormwater regulations as well as the Town of Foxborough stormwater bylaw. We are meeting the 90% TSS removal as well as 60% total phosphorus removal as part of this basin. And we are providing an additional 5,000 square feet of recharge within this basin than what is actually required.
If I could just add one more comment to what Derek had said too, with regards to the fencing around the property. So the chain link fence would be on the section that bisects lot 55 from 55A from 55B, which is our standard that we use pretty much everywhere. However, along the Walpole line, basically, where that buffer would be, we're committed to carrying the same detail of the stockade fence through there as an added buffer measure. So I know that was a lot of discussion back and forth as part of the 2022 approval.
And we are maintaining, there's a 10-foot required landscape setback, so we're providing that as well.
I'll point out too that, just for the board's knowledge more than anything else, but that kind of, if you picture the upper right-hand corner of the land that we own, it's outlined in blue, the 11 Nottingham parcel, there's that small section, that triangle section that's on the Foxborough side of the town line, that will remain with the house. That's why the parking lot kind of turns that slight little angle right there. It didn't have a meaningful difference in terms of the amount of spaces that could be added if it were incorporated. And more importantly, it allows the Walpole parcel to remain compliant due to setback requirements. About 7,500 square feet that will still remain within the town of Foxborough, even though the parcel of the house itself is within Walpole.
Could you shoot back to C301 for a second, that shows the basin?
Sure.
Yeah. So could you tell me what the existing grades are?
Jeff, can you speak closer?
Could you tell me what the existing grades are roughly, down at the bottom there, yeah?
Even more. They're having trouble picking you up.
Oh,
No, they're talking to me.
Okay. So the bottom of the basin is at 269, and then you have a little bit of a flat slope in through here. Here's 270, goes down to 263 on this on the bottom side here. So Sanborn Head, I think that was included as part of the submission with the stormwater report, full geotech memo. We have done test pits and a mounding analysis to make sure we have the approximate depth to groundwater for that basin.
So basically, going sort of off the property there, right now, as it stands, it's a fairly slight grade, fairly slight pitch.
Gradual, yes, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
very gradual.
Everything sheets down to the wetland that's down off the property here.
Yeah. I'm only pointing that out because you're up at about 15 feet there, within 50 feet, or maybe even less. That's pretty aggressive.
Talking to the mic. Pull it closer.
Next time you'll have to get me a body mic out there.
She liked that.
There's a gentleman in the audience that had his hand up, so.
Yeah, I just have a.
Just come up to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Ben Arnt. I'm 230 Summer Street, Walpole. I moved in before this project was approved, the first one, so I deal with all the changes. I get it. Can you go back a couple slides of where the line? I just wanted to make sure what's going on. So right now it's just going to go parallel across, right? So I live right here on this side, but it's just going to go straight across, correct?
Correct, yes.
This is going to be the new lot.
Correct, that's the limits of the
Slope will stay
proposed lot.
away.
Correct, yep.
Going down. And then, appreciate it, you guys put up a wood fence for us instead of the chain link. There's a group of dogs that run around. They've gotten into the parking lots many times. So they put like chicken wire below it because they go eat all the trash from the tailgaters, which is fine. I go to the games too. But just one thing to consider for the community is try and keep it down all the way. The wood fence had to be a foot up, get it weather conditions, storm control. You removed all those trees so the wind picks up, so I get it, the wood has to withstand it. What's approved happens. Only thing I could ask for is just fence it top to bottom or just keep it wood all the way across. That's it. Because right now this is wood. You got a berm that's stopping my house because the previous owners didn't come to the meetings and ask for the berm to continue. I tried during the project, was shut down. Whatever happens, y'all put up a wood fence, appreciate it. But now dogs get under it. And just for privacy, I know this is a craft house, they build kids for the soccer team. We know them well. It would be great just to keep a wood fence, if possible.
Yeah,
Just for like community reasons.
The intent is to have that fence, that same detail
Yeah.
continue down. We can look at the spacing
Or if
below it.
possible, it'd be great to continue the berm, but then you'd have to take the fence down, build it up. I used to do civil site work. I get it.
Yeah.
Plans, architects, all of that. But just a little bit of peace of mind. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, the berm, and Derek can speak to this, the berm becomes a little more of a challenge because they're actually going into a fill as you get further down to that area. So you start losing so much space to create the berm.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I can ask through you to Mr. Arndt.
Yep.
I don't believe we're proposing any changes to that section of fence.
No, the new one I was asking.
Yeah.
Just because if it goes wood to chain link.
It won't. It's going to stay wood the whole way.
But,
Yes.
The neighbors are gonna ask.
and I guess the second question I would have is if there was a change that you would like to see at the border of your property, what would it be?
Come to the mic,
Can you come up to the mic, please, because they're not picking you up?
Yeah, we get yelled at all
I
the
would
time.
like a 16-foot fence because now I can see the lights out my back door. I get it. $1,000 to make sure that's strong enough. Y'all kept the trees there, which is great, but any visibility to stop it a little bit. I know you put the those trees that grow hide cover. They could take 10 years to cover it. As big as fence as you could make that's wood. I know it can't be an eyesore. You want to put up a 30-foot wood fence. I get that. I would say just the most to keep the line away from the parking lot. I have a 2-year-old daughter. The Billet family there at the craft house is a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old. I have a 20-week-old on the way, or 20-week-old on the way. Crowd really hasn't changed. The noise actually been very similar, just privacy-wise.
So when you say as big, you don't mean big, you mean height.
I would love it to be 16, 20 feet, but I know that's I know that's a lot to ask and a lot to reinforce with the winds.
If that's a sound
especially.
wall, that's not a fence.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can't put up a 20
Are these wild dogs? Are they your dogs?
There are dogs. It's the
Okay.
neighbor, they get a
So-
sniff.
So, but if Matt was to evaluate a more secure, a way to secure the lower part of the fence more effectively?
Yeah, or just in general, like, it works fine now, but that's just one thing. My dog, but they have like a German short hair. That's got a nose on it. They had to track it all the way to Route 1 a few times now. Just little stuff like that. Like, it's not a big issue. It's just, I'll be living there the next 20 years of my life. So, housing costs in Massachusetts are absurd, so that's just a little bit of privacy, nothing crazy.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think just to be responsive, and I'll ask the question of my client, but I think we'd be prepared to evaluate both existing fence security as well as evaluate where supplemental landscaping might be identified along that residential border.
Okay.
More than fair.
Yeah.
And is there any other improvements moving that way? Or are you guys maxed out?
Not unless you're prepared to sell.
How much? Everything's got a price.
No, I think in terms of supplemental landscaping, if it means evaluating potentially supplementing on your property, that might be an option as well if you're.
Yeah. Not the end of the world, it's just, you get one time to ask when you're doing the project. Collar fence, wood fence would be great, chain link they can see through.
Yeah,
Trash hasn't been bad, nobody's sneaking through, that's fine.
Yeah, I
But
guess
I get it.
what I would say is we'll commit to taking a look at it. We already put an 8-foot stockade fence out there. I'll go on the record now, we're not going to put anything taller than an 8-foot
No,
fence.
well,
Just
you put it
because
up-
it's practically not feasible, and our fence vendor has already advised us of that. We can look at the gap at the bottom. To Peter's point, we'll look at some supplemental landscaping and stuff as well.
I mean,
if needed.
there's probably not, because you kept the trees, you're not gonna knock those down and put up dirt. I'd
Correct.
rather the trees than dirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, just,
Well, we have the opportunity, since we're being continued, so we can report back.
Okay, very good.
thank you.
Thank you.
So do I hear a motion to continue the,
Can I ask, since our next agenda is pretty full, would it be okay to continue to April 10th?
That's fine.
We appreciate it.
Jeff's not going to be here on April 10th, but hopefully Gary and Tracy will be back.
I'll look at stuff.
I'll make a
Give us
motion
rough
to
suggestions.
continue to April 10th at
Gabby, you want 7:10 or 7:15? 7:10.
I guess
7:10.
before, just as a point of clarification, Gabby and Catherine, do we think that stormwater review will be ready at that point?
Probably. I mean, if we're going a month out, I would imagine that
Yeah.
barring some huge discovery, it ought to be complete by
Okay,
then.
thank you.
It'd be ideal for us if it were, to be honest with you, because we're out looking to try to construct this season, so obviously ahead of football, so it's going to be pretty tight into
Yeah,
the start of the
the
season.
proposal said it would take, 2 weeks to do the review, and I think by doing that, then you guys will be able to do any revisions that are needed. We can have a meeting to discuss with the peer reviewer and try to get everything addressed before the April 10th, so.
Sure.
That's
That'd
great.
be great.
We appreciate it.
Peter, we should point out about Concom as well, just note that.
Yeah, I neglected. Derek's slide pointed out, there's no direct wetland impact here, but we have just recently filed with the Concom because that new basin is within the 100-foot buffer zone. So we'll be subject to review by the commission as well.
So was that
Thanks,
a
Mike.
motion to go to the April 10th?
Yes, I already did.
Second, okay. And we need a roll call vote.
Gary, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Jeff, yes.
Kevin, aye.
Ron, aye. Okay, we're
Thank
good.
you.
I guess the
Thanks.
next motion we make is motion to adjourn.
That will be it.
Okay,
Was that your motion?
that was it, baby.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, guys.
Good
Thanks
night.
for joining
Aye.
us.
Ending.